Better Call Saul is a really badly written show. Case in point, what was the point of this character? Did Bravo Vince Gilligan just put him in because Sam Bankman-Fried is in the public eye right now? What did Sam Bankman-Fried mean by this comment in episode 6? Very disappointing behaviour on AMC's part in my opinion. So I haven't done a politics video in a while, mostly because ever since getting into games and making lots of games videos, I've sort of settled into a pattern of content I like, but also I like to make more politics videos again, if nothing else to make my politics degree worth something. So I'm just going to make this one and see how it feels, and if I like it, maybe I'll keep doing it, and if I don't like it, then I won't. Not to mention I assume my followers are like me and that they only go outside to get the minimum dosage of sunlight and grass touching required to live, so they may not be across the news cycle like I am. Today's epic trending topic is Sam Bankman-Fried, the embattled former chief executive of the collapsed cryptocurrency exchange FTX, who's been in the news, yesterday? Time zones make it kind of unclear. Basically, he's being remanded to jail after being accused by prosecutors of trying to intimidate witnesses, which isn't a huge deal since I intimidate witnesses all the time, but in this case he didn't exactly cover his tracks very well since the evidence of him doing it is in, like, a New York Times article. Let me backpedal just a little bit so I can give you some background. SBF's former cryptocurrency exchange FTX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the US in November last year after a bunch of people tried to take their money out of the exchange and the exchange was insufficiently solvent to process all the withdrawals. They'd run out of money. This is called a liquidity crisis, which for my younger viewers is like when you spend a bunch of money buying Subway Surfers gems using your parents' credit card, and as a result they can't make the installment payment on the card and you lose the house. That's not really what it's like. Having said that, if you want tips to avoid losing all your money in the Ebony King's return economy, make sure to subscribe. Anyway, FTX ran out of money so hard they went around looking for a $10 billion rescue deal to cover customer assets that never surfaced, probably because potential investors saw the company's finances were in shambles and, according to testimony from FTX's current CEO, John J. Ray III, were subject to basically no corporate control, causing them to run the other way. Rival crypto exchange Binance, which now seems to be in its own difficult patch, almost bought the company out but then didn't, dropping the company into a black hole of its own creation from which it has never resurfaced. In fact, FTX ran out of money harder than all that because not only did FTX's bankruptcy bankrupt FTX, it also collapsed Silvergate Bank, which held a massive position in FTX, partially precipitated a whole banking crisis that regulators suddenly had to care about or something. FTX ran out of money for a panoply of reasons and they're all pretty ridiculous. If financial stuff bores you, skip to here and you can get back to me talking about SBF. Basically, Slate explains this better than I can, and there's a link in the description, but the whole problem relies on everyone involved not knowing how lending things is meant to work. Okay, essentially, Alameda Research, which was SBF's hedge fund, took out a bunch of loans from FTX, SBF's company. As a result, they had a bunch of FTX's cryptocurrency, FTT, creatively named, I know. Anyway, Alameda had a bunch of FTT from loans out from FTX and wanted more loans, so it used that existing FTT in its balance sheet as collateral to get those loans. So at the very least, if the hedge fund failed and Alameda didn't pay the loans back, FTX had a bunch of FTT, which was its own currency. That's fine up until the point FTX became horrifyingly levered up on its own supply. The problem with FTX being over-leveraged in FTT is that FTT's value is inherently tied up with people's confidence in the FTX company. And if people start asking questions about how liquid FTX is, that FTT might start declining in value. This creates a knock-on effect. The more FTT loses value, the more people start losing faith in FTX, and the more people start trying to withdraw their cash from the exchange. And the more people start withdrawing their cash from the exchange, the lower public confidence in FTX becomes, the lower FTT sinks in value. Eventually, the cash people are attempting to withdraw can't be clawed back because it's been loaned out. The collateral from the loan is becoming increasingly worthless, and the money that got lent in the first place is, gone. At that point, the company's insolvent and has to be wound up. Very easy to understand if you watch the wire fraud episode of Breaking Bad. Read the Slate article when you have time anyway, it's a pretty accessible read about how the whole system went wrong. As a result of all this financial mismanagement, SBF's now being accused of a series of financial crimes. Securities fraud, commodities fraud, money laundering, very serious offences. After extraditing him from the Bahamas to face trial in the US, he was placed on a highly restrictive bond at his parents' home in Palo Alto, California, ankle tag and so on. The bond itself has a surety of $250 million, meaning if he jumped bail, his parents' house would be forfeited, which is a mild inconvenience for you if you happen to be someone who cares about their loved ones having a home. Fortunately, that house apparently won't be forfeit in response to SBF's decision to do witness tampering in violation of his bail agreement. Unfortunately, it does seem like he won't be going back there for a while, or maybe ever, because the judge in his case seems finally to have had enough. In a ruling yesterday, the judge in SBF's case decided he should be remanded to the US Marshal on the advice of American prosecutors. He said the safety of the community could not be ensured after it had become clear SBF was unwilling to comply with judicial restrictions, and no additional restriction would make that possible. possible. But what actually did he do to game a shot at the US justice system like this? And as an aside, do you guys remember Gamer Shots, that Twitter account Keemstar did back in the day? I remember because I've been here forever and exist only to bear witness to the crimes of man. Anyway, what did he do? Well, for one, he contacted several FTX employees trying to butter them up and ask to interpersonally vet things, which probably amounts to trying to get them to testify in a way that would be amenable to him personally. He also used an encrypted messaging app, Signal, which prosecutors didn't super love him doing, as I'm sure you can well imagine. Then there was the big one, which is what the reporting recently has been about and which appears to be the last straw for both the government and the judge. Honestly, it seems weird that the guy who made a bunch of unforced mistakes that wiped out half the crypto industry would also make a bunch of unforced mistakes that wiped out his credibility with the court system, but that's why he's a multimillionaire genius and I'm making YouTube videos about Sisyphus rolling a ball, I guess. So the big one that got him in trouble recently was his communications with a journalist for the New York Times. The NYT published an article containing, quote, "the private writings of Carolyn Ellison, star witness in the FTX case." Ellison is a highly important material witness for the government in the case. She was CEO of Alameda Research while all the alleged fraud and money mishandling was going on, and admitted to being aware of all the potentially illegal activity. This article is a pretty serious issue for SBF's case. The article is not massively favourable to Ellison, quoting private diary entries that detailed her unhappy emotional state as Alameda CEO and, parenthetically, as Bankman-Fried's former girlfriend, as well as detailing her personal doubts about being able to run the business. Those writings by Ellison were leaked to the NYT by Fried and, in the eyes of the prosecution, amounted to an effort to harass her given her position as a key witness and dissuade others from testifying against him for fear of having the same thing happen to them. Witness intimidation. Despite SBF's defense team making apparently unconvincing overtures about the First Amendment, the court didn't really buy it given all the other chicanery SBF had got into. Yo, cool, a Better Call Saul reference. The people of the Better Call Saul subreddit will really like this one. As a result of his misbehavior, he's been remanded in US custody in the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center. His lawyers are still trying to appeal as being remanded on the basis that given truly how many documents are responsive to the case, it'd be very difficult for him to do discovery from inside a cell. But until we know how the results of that appeal shake out, SBF is going to be in jail for a bit. We've all been there though. Make sure to slap that like button if you've also gone to prison for wire fraud. Anyway, that's about everything. Other people are more qualified than me to talk about this, so I recommend that Slate article. Basically everything on Web3 is going just great, and also the opinions and comments of basically anyone else, unless they're talking about it while wearing sunglasses from the driver's seat of their car or in vagaries about how the government is trying to suppress an innocent crypto innovator or whatever. I'll get back to making the Sisyphus project later. I need to go slam a rock into my own head at Mark 10. Good night.